Hello. Suicide is a moral, ethical, and theological issue. Suicide is a moral, ethical, and theological issue. Too often, suicide is simply medicalized. Let me preface this by stating I hope all suicides stop happening. Let me also state that I myself am not going to hurt myself or anybody else. I'm a peaceful individual, an authentically peaceful individual. And again, it will be good if we can reduce suicides to zero. We should use persuasion, reason, and kindness. Kindness to reduce suicides. We should not use psychiatric coercion, force, and confinement. Suicide should be respected as a civil and human right for adults. We should stop medicalizing suicide. That is, treating suicide as a purely medical issue, stating that people who engage in suicide have something wrong with their brain or some mental disorder. And again, I'm not promoting suicide. I think that we should reduce suicides to zero if possible. However, we should only use persuasion, reason, and kindness to reduce suicides. We should not use psychiatric force, coercion, and confinement. Read the books. I have 2 books I'm recommending. The first book is Suicide Prohibition, The Shame of Medicine. The other book is Fatal Freedom, The Ethics and Politics of Suicide. They are both by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. So read those books. And again, suicide should be respected as a civil and human right for adults. And again, it will be good if we can reduce suicides to zero. We just should not use force, coercion, and confinement. And again, what I'm saying in this video is that suicide is a moral, ethical, and theological issue. So it's a moral and ethical issue in that it deals with people's emotions. People who know those that engage in suicide often miss them or have negative emotions related to a suicide that happens. In that sense, the social problem that suicide is or can create is moral and ethical. Is it right or wrong to engage in suicide? And ultimately, I would posit that suicide is a personal decision for adults. If an adult has enough trauma and misery in their life that they want to engage in suicide, well then it is up to them to deal with the moral and ethical issues surrounding their suicide. And again, I'm not promoting suicide. I hope suicides stop happening. But my point here is that to simply medicalize suicide, that is morally and ethically wrong, to simply medicalize it. It's dehumanizing to those that want to engage in suicide. And again, I'm not promoting suicide. I hope that it stops happening. I think we should just use a lot more persuasion, reason, and kindness to stop them. We should simply not be using psychiatric coercion, force, and confinement. And then suicide is a theological issue. What happens after we die? Is there an afterlife? For an atheist who might believe that nothing happens after we die, that they just turn into dust and dirt and cease to exist, then if they're miserable on earth, why shouldn't they be allowed to embrace that non-existence that they believe happens after death? Now, the United States is a majority Christian country, from what I understand, so Christians have certain beliefs about the afterlife and that suicide is morally wrong. So if we want to live in a theocratic society, if we want to have laws based on theological posits and dogmas and positions, well, that's what we have now. Suicide is effectively illegal, and it's probably based on our traditional Judeo-Christian values through the history of the United States. Even though the United States is supposed to be a secular nation, we're not a Christian nation. we have a separation of church and state. But we don't have a separation of psychiatry and state. There should be a separation of psychiatry and state, which we do not have. So suicide, again, is a moral, ethical, and theological issue. If we reduce it to a medical issue, that is dehumanizing to people that want to engage in suicide, to adults that want to engage in suicide. So I hope I've gotten my point across, at least a little bit. And again, you can watch other videos that I've posted on this topic, or you can read the books by Thomas Szasz, psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, the late professor of psychiatry, who wrote about 35 books. And again, I'd recommend Suicide Prohibition, The Shame of Medicine, or Fatal Freedom, The Ethics and Politics of Suicide. Start there. So I'm going to end this. I'm going to finish it up. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Watch my other videos. And have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whenever and wherever you may be. Thanks for watching. Cheers.